Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time on your day for joining us on today's webinar. This is our 11th webinar, and it is our third webinar for 2026. We have a very interesting topic, one that most organizations, and me in particular, have always found a challenge in how to have those good donor conversations. And to look at what we've been doing is to understand the need of organizations, because donor conversations result in donor donations. And the better the conversation, sometimes the better the donation, the better the relationship that exists between the institution and your funders. But a little bit about today's discussion is taking the framework of Funding Matters, a firm that was founded in 1997 as a consulting firm that has vertically integrated components that focus on bringing the donor story to life, bringing your case for support to life for the benefit of your donors, and their knowledge that they would have and the empowerment that they would have with your campaigns, whether it's a capital campaign, an endowment campaign, an operational programming initiative, whatever it may be. Being able to actually take your case and actually have your donors immerse themselves into your operations and your programs is very powerful. And so one of the things that we looked at was, how can we be creating that virtual reality? But more importantly, once the donors have immersed themselves into these spaces, is to actually have that knowledge of the agentic artificial intelligence so that they can actually be learning more about the need, the opportunity, the priorities within the organization as well. And so when we started to understand that, then we were able to actually show to the donors, based on your priorities, what some of the affordability options are around making strategic donations, tax efficient donations. So when we start to look at Funding Matters as a whole, all we were really looking at doing was providing more tools for the benefit of not-for-profit organizations, charitable organizations like yours, for the benefit of your operations on an ongoing basis. But that brings me to today's panel. And we are really have the opportunity to actually have the benefit of having two very strong complementary components, two that really don't really necessarily, you'd think that they would come together. But on one hand, we've got James Murphy, an internationally renowned coach, trainer, fundraiser, campaign manager, strategist. And on the other hand, we have Kensho Ando Heng. And Kensho is an educator at the post-secondary level. He's an entrepreneur, he's an innovator, and he has expertise in media communications as well as AI. So this is like having James and Kensho together is like having peanut butter and jelly. They're both great on their own, but when they're together, they create an amazing outcome in terms of something that is food for thought for our conversation this afternoon. My name is Bill Petrick. I am the founder of Funding Matters, and I'm happy to be your host for today's session that will be focusing on, donor conversations, building that AI component within that framework, and sort of understanding the benefits that can be associated with what we're looking at achieving. So fundraising, AI and fundraising. If you can't turn on the radio, watch TV, open a newspaper without hearing something about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is everywhere, whether we know how we're using AI or we don't know how we're using it. AI has found a way to be incorporated in what we're doing. And for today's purposes, today's discussion, we want to be focusing on how AI can benefit you and your donors in terms of moving your mission, your vision, your mandates forward. And so part of all of this, and James, looking at the structure as a whole in terms of, having these donor conversations, what does that framework look like? Because that's one of the objectives for today's discussion.
I think one of the things we emphasize in training and coaching is really about building an individualized strategy for donors. And as you get, along and more practice as a fundraiser, more experience, you think you've got it covered. But it's really important to customize and tailor those strategies. You want to look for things like affinity, you want to look for past giving, you want to look for issues that have come up. To do all that, you've had to, sort of troll the CRM database and go back and look at somebody's notes from 3 years ago. AI really accelerates that process and helps you contribute to building that strategic framework. And later on, we can talk a little bit about how you apply that and to donor conversations. But the other aspect of this too, practicing. You can practice with your manager, you can practice with your colleague, you can practice in front of the mirror in the shower. But with AI, you've got that interactiveness that allows you to do this repetition over and over and over until it becomes second nature, and really customize and build that framework so that each donor, we talk about donors as individuals, but really putting the donor at the center of that strategy and framework.
Kensho, how's this all fit together with the overall scope of um, creating the AI architecture?
No, I think that's a very good point you bring up, James. In the world of AI can do this, AI can do that, AI can do everything, and it's here, there, everywhere. Now, I think one of the most important thing that James emphasized is one of the best things that I love about AI is something that I'm going to quickly describe here. We are very used to the idea with Google and all these old school, engines as search engines. So when we, in terms of, let's say, put it in the world of searching, when we think of searching for a word like best AI or best fundraising courses, etc., what Google does is it pulls the word best fundraising courses. Now, the new word I want every single one of us to really think about is the word answer engine. With AI, we are finally not just going to Google to find an answer, we're getting the answer we want because you can go deeper, you can dive in a more personal level, and you can keep going until you get exactly the answer you want. And when we pull that into the scope of fundraising or preparing for a donor conversation or anything in this space, I want every single one of you to think, how much deeper can I go using AI in terms of preparation, in terms of practicing, in terms of just brainstorming back and forth, all these crazy ideas in your head before you talk to a donor. All these things you can do with AI. And the best part of it, it's turned on 24/7. It's never tired of your brain blabber and it never gets upset at you when you don't understand your concept. So really, there's so much potential, but some of the concepts we'll talk about is it can do everything, but the most important thing is do everything strategically with the idea in your head of how you're going to use it carefully.
James, how many times have we gone through a training session and we followed up with the client and asked them, "Hey, have you applied? How's your team applying what the training session was about?"
Yeah, the number one thing, 3 weeks later, 3 months later, a lot of that fades. When I coach people and work with people as coach, I say, "Hey, what about when we did that training session? Do you remember when we covered blah, blah, blah?" And they say, "Oh yeah, I think I've got my notebook here somewhere." And they'll flip to the notes and this and that. It's really hard to retain that kind of information unless it's practice, practice, practice. And as Kensho said, you've got the ability to talk to somebody who's never going to be judgmental and never reprimand you. I don't know. I think I was judged by AI the other day, but that might have been my fault. But yeah, you can keep going and you can build those frameworks and keep applying those things that you learn and you come up with. So it's really a very great learning curve that you can bring with you.
This is what we can look at. We were trying to do a poll of our clients and the ones who are implementing our technology, and we're saying, what ways do you see AI working for you? And this is just a shopping list of just under 30 opportunities here. But there's so many more. And when you start to look at how AI can be used and how it can benefit yourself and your donors, James, do you see this as any of these topics sort of jump out at you?
few that I'll just pull out that do, in fact, and that is, we're constantly emphasizing creating individual donor strategies, as I've said. Stewardship is another area which gets neglected in a lot of these cases. So, and then the major thing that I find right now working with coachees is getting those first meetings and understanding donors. So you're sending out sort of, let's just say, your standard email. I'd like to have a meeting. We talk about the hospital. We talk about the university. This allows you to really customize and tailor those emails to people when it's a cold outreach, because you've got their interest, you've got the personalization. I noticed that 2 years ago you came to a seminar by Dr. Smith, and I wanted to let you know that in our oncology unit we've done this. That's the kind of personalized outreach email that hopefully will get you that first meeting and build that framework for understanding what your donor's interests are. Same with stewardship. I find constantly talking about donors with people that I work with. How has this donor been stewarded? Well, we kind of don't really have the capacity for that. I think we sent him a letter last year. We sent her, an update on the program. Those are the kinds of things that can become very powerful leveraged tools for you as a fundraiser through AI.
And there are always those gotchas, like handling an objection.
Huge.
What kind of objections can you be confronted with? How can you prepare yourself? How can you be, practicing, responding to those objections? Because you never know, if when you're reaching out to an individual, how they feel that particular day. Are you catching them on a good day? Are you on your best? Have you thought through, what your objectives are with the meeting?
I think one of the questions that first threw me for a loop years ago was a donor said, why me? Why are you thinking about me for this project? Boy, I had no answer to that. It's like, what do you say?
Right.
These are the kinds of things that you can think through and build out
Yeah.
prior to those kinds of things. Somebody throws you a curveball. You've probably
Right.
thought about it using your AI interactivity.
Yeah, that why me is a gotcha for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kencho,
Yep.
anything you want to add to?
Well, I think when we look at a list like this, it really ties into my last point of AI can do everything. A lot of organizations actually had a problem the past few years because they saw AI and they were like, hey, let's throw it in everywhere and anywhere. Now, the problem when you have a technology that is built to multiply or accelerate something is if you shove it in somewhere it doesn't fit or shouldn't fit or didn't actually have anything broken to do with, then you've got processes that are already broken, team members who already need help, and you're now just saying, hey, here's AI, figure it out, right? And I always think of this in the context of if you had a beautiful CRM or technology that's worked well for 15 or 20 years, and suddenly your company comes to you and goes, hey, AI is here. This is our new AI tool. And you're going to drop everything you've built for the past 15, 20 years, just because it's AI with no explanation, no understanding why. I think that's the problem a lot of organizations do. So what I really do encourage is when we show a list like this, it's to show the potential that AI can do so much. But what I will also kind of scale back on is really thinking about the entire process without AI first and start thinking, where are the points that my team are doing different things and how are they doing these different things? And then once you map these out, start thinking, where could AI fit? Does it fit or do we need a human in that? Because that's going to really help you then decide when we see all these wonderful things of what AI can do for your donor, where does it fit in? So now looking at this very extensive list, some things I think about that an AI can do for a donor is let's think of things in terms of the donor engagement process, right? Or the donor journey. Let's say from starting with something like donor discovery or identifying prospects, you've got your team members, Googling and jumping onto all these different type of resources. But with AI, you can actually kind of pre-train it on your exact ideal client profile and then get the AI to start doing that searching for you and give you a list of curated, best suitable lists of individuals, right? When you think of planning out, how do you personalize your outreach for them? There is no way that every single person can type a long email every single time. So you can have an AI model think of who you are or how you sound and all these things ahead of time so that you can then add in your little personal human touch into that, right? For meeting preparation, it's great. You've never met a client before. You don't know what they are or anything about them. but you want to see if there's anything out there on the internet that the AI can at least prepare with you. And the best part of it is then it can look at your organization and say, hey, have you thought about this? Maybe you should talk about this instead, not this other product or all these other things, right? Then we move into the actual conversation practice, right? Which is something so valuable is everyone is scared about preparing to have a conversation, and having this AI model that you can just chat with that's not going to scold you or judge you is amazing, because just the act of talking to something that is reacting as if it's a real conversation really boosts that confidence. And now the implication is you're not sitting there that you might destroy that lead or destroy that prospect, because you've already practiced it 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, and you know you're confident and ready for it, right? And then even after that, we can think of it, oh, the meeting went great. Ask the AI, tell it, hey, that person I met was wonderful, but he mentioned one objection. What do you think are other objection response strategies, or all these things, right? Now, all these things are amazing things that AI can do. And I'm telling you these because it's thinking of, wow, it can do so much. So your role as someone in the industry is trying to think, where does it actually fit? And what are things that I can do? But the final thing I will say is, with the AI's help, but keeping the human in the loop with everything. I always say AI is an extension of a person, but it shouldn't, and I don't think it should ever be a replacement of us. Your value in the industry is your knowledge, your thinking, your experience, your human insights. The AI will help you speed that up and make it better, but you need to keep that at the core of anything you do with AI models.
And I think you really make a good point, because incorporating that within the CRMs, it could, the objective is how to move these prospects along. But there are two ways of looking at it. AI has been utilized within CRMs to be actually doing additional outreach for many of those prospects that have never, fallen kind of off the charts for some of the organizations. But on the other hand, and those donors are at a particular level. If you get them in at $100 or $500 as a gift, that's wonderful, because you got them back into the system.
Correct.
But where we're looking at in terms of those donor conversations, that's having the conversations with individuals who might be good annual donors that you'd like to move to mid-level donors, or the mid-level into major gift or planned giving, whatever it happens to be, because we can get into much more meaningful conversations with individuals and practice those conversations in terms of getting ready to take the next steps.
Correct.
So when we're starting to look at what's the right AI for the right task, now it's kind of like the Wild West. It's that point where a lot of companies have now all gone in hard on AI, and some are very well known, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. But there are others along the lines that you might also be familiar with and using. But this is an area that, what's the right AI? Is there a right AI? Is there, what's the right strategy in terms of building, customized tools that'll help you? And in our instance today, the circumstances that we're focusing on are how to have a donor conversation. So if we could take all of these and put them in, I think we could create a lot of confusion for the end user, but at the same time, there's a lot of firepower in each and every one of them. But it's being able to extract that information and then apply it for our purposes. And I think you touched on this, Kensho, in terms of, that right AI for the right task.
Correct. And what I will say to everyone here is, of course, it's a very overwhelming list. And I've been in the AI space since the first versions of ChatGPT were popping out in the public. And I think one thing to note is, yes, there's so many models out there and there's so many different tools. And as a company, yes, it is very overwhelming when you've got a extensive list every time you type, what is the best AI for this and that? So I think the most important thing is there are very famous ones that we've all heard of, right? We have ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. All of these are very large scale AI models that are built as they call them foundation models, right? So they're there to do anything and everything. My biggest recommendation is always start with one first. Don't go too crazy. Start getting comfortable with the act of using AI. So when I say act of using AI is the word prompt engineering, right? Talking in the language of the AI models. So by understanding how to talk to one model, eventually those skills translate to using other models. It's like you're not going to hop onto a motorbike if you don't know how to use a little bicycle first, right? So take it step by step. Then you'll start to see how all these, this list has everything, what the specialty of each of these models are. So then you can start to go deeper into maybe a racing bike, a sports bike, or maybe a Harley Davidson, a big, huge bike. Then you decide from there which is the specialization, but don't overcomplicate yourself. Pick one, whether it's ChatGPT, Cloud, whichever one you want, and just start using it, right? The best thing about AI is even if it was built for a different purpose, technically, unless they really blocked it off, these general models will answer your question the same way as another. They answer it slightly different, how they're built, but they will still get you to your goal. So the most important thing is starting at one point, getting comfortable, and then starting to build your confidence from there. Or maybe working with someone who already has that specialty, who then will speed that entire process and say, hey, you don't need to jump left, right, everywhere. Just start here and then going from that point, because it is a very overwhelming space.
So here we are, and we're going to take the first steps into our next visualization, and that will be to create an interactive model of a donor conversation. But building these stronger donor conversations, James, requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of investment to get it right.
Yeah, and as you say, don't practice on the donor. Practice before you see the donor. Um, One of the key things that I spend time with in coaching with is building individualized donor strategies and having those conversations. Not to say that you don't need me anymore for coaching, but really AI can help you have those interactive conversations and really understand how to ask high value questions and get the donor to some breakthrough thinking about things too. Not every donor who's got millions of dollars and is disposed to be philanthropic is necessarily going to respond to your project. And, in some cases, that's just not going to happen. But I think this really maximizes the potential value of return on investment with the donor, with that conversation, when you go in there and understand what are the most meaningful questions I can ask this donor. How do I respond to some of the potential answers that he may be giving me or she may be giving me. And you've got the accessibility to information. And I think also, as we mentioned earlier, handling those objections, understanding how to do that, going deep, brainstorming, as Ken Schultz said, to really build out a multifaceted conversational strategy and practice, practice, practice.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to a theater rehearsal for a play, they do it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and there's constant modifications and updates and changes, even with the author sitting there. So it's not set in stone, and really going in. I mean, I can't overemphasize the confidence that this builds with coaching and now with AI as a practice tool for this kind of approach.
The coaching, it's, whether you're learning to play the piano and you're going in for your weekly practice session, but you have to, when you leave that session, you've got to go home and at least practice for 15 minutes every day. And it's a
Right.
lot easier to practice for 15 minutes every day than to try to practice for an hour and a half on a Saturday when the weather is really nice and everyone else is running around and enjoying themselves. It's, trying to get it right. And because you don't want to, as you said, you don't want to be practicing on the donor. You want the opportunity of doing this and then modifying and then taking what you know about the donor and then incorporating that into the scenario and helping develop your own unique voice, your script, and how you can be looking at that framework that James, you talked about initially, about the structure of what that would look like is so important. And that's where we can look at that stronger donor conversation and then practice it with AI. Practice it, and not just use AI, but just practice all the different outcomes that may arise so that you're prepared to actually help that individual, because not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping the donor, because the donor may have unanswered questions that you will
Yeah.
have to go back and find those answers to, or they might have objections that you were completely unaware of. But these are things that can be factored into your practice model in terms of getting to that next step.
Correct. And I'm gonna add on to that real quick because I think the beauty of having an AI model is quite literally not just the fact that it's always on, but it's accessible in the sense that just like Bill and James mentioned, I think in the world of when you're actually having to talk to a real donor, there's not enough accessibility, right? In the old school days, it's, hey, let me go to my manager or let me go to someone and, hey, can I practice on you? If they have maybe 5 minutes, they'll practice with you one or two times. But the only problem is that after that session, you're gonna go, okay, I could talk to myself in an empty room. I could pretend, but ultimately, I think we all know when you're reading a script versus you're having a conversation, things change very, very quickly. And when you have an AI model that is able to react as quickly as a real conversation, even though it's not a real person, that feeling, that confidence, that being able to critically change your agenda or the way you're going to be responding based on an objection, these little skills, the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you get naturally. And I think that is something that AI brings, because you also have this weird level of confidence when you are talking to the AI, because it's not someone else sitting there that's ready to make fun of you or laugh or joke at you, right? I know myself when sometimes I'm practicing for a presentation and I'm practicing in front of my friends, even my brother or my closest info, I'm still nervous and I'm still scared. So parts of me, I'm still not as confident as I should be. But then when I do the same thing with an AI model by myself, I'm all out. I'm just joking and talking to it very casually. But because I practice maybe 4 or 5 times with the AI, during the actual day, it's just like, oh, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. An objection comes. Oh, I've already talked to the AI 6 times about this. Here you go. And then, just like Bill said, for the donor itself, it makes their life easier. They're not sitting in a call or a meeting with someone scrambling on their computer trying to figure out an answer. No, the person's like, hey, great, you asked that question. Here's my answer. Everyone is getting the answers to it. They're getting the what they need at a much faster level. And I think that's what AI brings to the table, is connecting the dots that we used to have at a much more faster, accessible level.
And James, this question's for you. When you're doing your training sessions, because I can reflect on ours as well. When we ask for people to pick up their hands to do a role play, how many people are willing to do that? How many people are comfortable with it?
Yeah, well, I think it's not there's 10% of people who actually love the stuff, but when it comes time to the role playing, it's like, oh no, we got to role play. Once you get in, I'm one who actually had objections to it, but doing training and playing different roles has actually been really helpful and useful. But sometimes you're partnered with someone who might be not as experienced, not as professional, not as polished. AI leverages all of that. You've got the perfect, practice partner to do that. And again, you're there representing the donor is there thinking about one of the two or three most intimate decisions of their lives, which is what are they going to do with their money and who are they going to give it to? Yes, you're representing an institution, you're representing a university, a prominent medical center, etc. But you want to bring that level of professionalism and polish to the table for the donor. So they say, an institution like this hires somebody like this. That's a confidence builder for me. So I think that's a very, very key component, as Kensho has emphasized about this.
So this takes us to, we've got two case studies, and one is for a post-secondary institution, and the second is for a health center. And so the case studies are going to be role plays, and we're going to be doing the role play. And the first case is with Tim Bradford. And Tim is a recent donor. He's been giving $15,000 annually for the past 4 years to his alma mater. Recently, he gave 25,000 to the capital campaign. It really wasn't anyone from the advancement office that approached him. Tim just basically for reasons that we hope to find out, selected to make these donations. His interests are student scholarships, first generation student support, because he himself was the first in his family to go to university, and he's become a success as a result of it. He's very analytical, and he's into the measurement of the outcomes from the program. He does things like attends the gala. The gala is coming up. He prefers a phone call over an email. He gets a lot of emails, and he doesn't really feel that he wants to respond to each and every one of them because he doesn't know how important or a priority they are. But he's always looking at long-term impact. So here's Tim, and I am going to try, and I'm just going to close the slide share. Oh, sorry. Yours. So share, sorry. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, here we go, Tim. So I have let me just make sure if I could do this. Wait, you can see the screen. Perfect. Okay. So on my smartphone, I have an app that we've developed called Builder Bill. And Builder Bill is going to help in role play for my preparation of a meeting with Tim. So I'm going to start it at this point. Hello.
Would you like a quick 30-second setup, or should we start immediately?
Let's start with a 30-second setup.
What organization and cause are you fundraising for?
Well, I'm raising funds for my university.
Is this a first meeting, a follow-up conversation, or are you making the ask today?
I'm new to the advancement office at the university. This is a first meeting with Tim Bradford, and I'm looking forward to connecting with him.
Did Tim approach you with interest, or are you reaching out to him?
Since I'm new at the university, I'm reaching out to Tim to introduce myself.
Who am I as the donor? Give me a name and a short background.
It's Tim Bradford. And Tim is a wealth manager, very successful, graduate of our university and our business school.
How would you describe me? Warm, analytical, skeptical, legacy-focused, or something else?
I look at you as a warm and analytical person looking at measurable outcomes from your giving.
What is my history with your organization? None, occasional, major donor, or exploring.
You've been an exceptional donor, giving $15,000 annually for the past 4 years. And recently, unsolicited, you gave $25,000 to our capital campaign.
What gift range are we discussing?
First of all, I'd like to use this as a stewardship meeting, but I'd ultimately like to see a $250,000 contribution to an area that Tim is interested in.
Any interests I care about: research, student support, innovation, legacy naming, or something else?
Well, you've been a good supporter of our student scholarships, especially the first generation student scholarship support.
What is the one outcome you want from this conversation?
I would like to introduce myself and have a first meeting with Tim. I'm going to be making a phone call to Tim to actually set the meeting up.
Right. Tim Bradford, a successful wealth manager alum. This is a first meeting about a $250,000 future gift for your university. And your goal is to introduce yourself and set up a future meeting. Let's begin. Hi, I'm Tim. It's great to connect. What prompted you to reach out to me today?
Hi, Tim. It's Bill from the university. Thanks very much for taking my call. I wanted to thank you for your generous support of our student scholarships, especially our first generation student scholarships, and your recent gift towards our capital campaign. That's truly wonderful. I would love to meet with you and give you an update as to how those students have benefited from your support.
Let's pause there. First, you opened with warmth and gratitude, which was a strong start. Second, you clearly acknowledged past giving, building rapport. Third, you made a specific invitation to meet, which is actionable. For improvement, first, be even more curious about the donor's interests. Second, ask a direct question to engage them. Third, clarify a next step so it's mutual. This conversation sat in early prospect identification, and you advanced it by inviting the next step. Would you like to run it again?
I'd like to continue.
No problem. Since you'd like to continue, let's dive right back in. I'm Tim, and you've just invited me to meet. Let's say I reply, I do appreciate the update idea, but what kind of impact are you seeing right now?
Right now, we have produced an exceptional outcome for our students that not only have they been graduating, but they've been actually finding employment with their first applications. And thanks very much to your support that we've been able to attract some of these exceptional students.
I don't have extra data on your outcomes, but in your role play, that was a solid answer. You tied the donor support to real student success. Keep going and explore more of Tim's interests to deepen the conversation.
Let's stop here.
Let's pause there. First, you communicated genuine gratitude and tied impact back to Tim's giving. Strong. Second, you stayed donor centric, asking about interests. Third, you built a natural flow. Well done. Areas to improve. First, give Tim space to share his thoughts after you ask. Second, clarify next steps so he knows what's expected. Third, pace yourself with a touch more silence after key questions. This was still early prospect identification, and you did advance momentum by building rapport. Would you like to run it again?
Let's stop here. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you ever want to practice another scenario or dive deeper into a particular part of the conversation, just let me know. I'm here to help sharpen your fundraising skills.
So you can see there's one scenario, and maybe James or Kensho, you want to have a little bit of an overview on that?
Yeah, and I think there's, with AI, there's different ways you can interact with it. I think with this one, it was more on the let's break down each part of the conversation, right? But then there's another version you can actually play with it, which is just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? So it really depends on what kind of practice you want. I mean, for me, I know I'm someone who likes to kind of break down different parts of my conversations. So for something like this, I would love to, I'd probably be taking notes on which areas to go into, right? Because if you think about it, if I were to go into a call and had, went straight into the donor and said XYZ, all these different things, is it too short? Is it too long? Do I need to add different kind of things? Did I over talk about this? All these little things, I think AI is able to kind of capture each moment of it and actually give you live feedback, right? And imagine how much you would have paid to hire someone to sit there with you with that much detail and break down every single thing you said and accurately know every word you said. Because I know as a human, if Bill were to say exactly that and you ask me even 10 seconds later, what did I say again? Or how do I help? I'm going to capture maybe the 4 or 5 key words I remember. But in terms of exact words, that is something an AI has power to. It has every single word you said, and it's able to coach you or give you that type of insight for every single word you said and guide you on the next. So I think that's spectacular that you showed that, Bill.
Yeah,
James,
Kensho, I think the thing I would add to that too, which you summed it up really, really well. Obviously, in training sessions, you can't get down to this level of customization. And coaching, you still got that human element in there. You got to take notes, or maybe you can record the session, but you're not, and I can ask questions, but we've got an hour to do that, and we can't always drill down. And if you're with the AI tool, you've got 15 minutes. You're going into this very precise kinds of things. You got to take a phone call. You can pause. If I'm on with a coach, you can't really do that. And that human element, there's always a sense that you want to please your interlocutor, you want to please the person you're talking to. So this, I think, removes a lot of that anxiety around, am I doing the right thing? Because if you make a mistake, there's nobody there to see it. Or if you feel you are not as confident, there's nobody there to see it. So I think this is, very, very powerful
Correct.
stuff. And the great thing, as you say, is you can return to it and hear exactly what you said.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I've started noticing even in my use of AI is I think as humans, just like you mentioned, James, is you do still have this kind of internal guilt or I feel bad if sometimes
And so
even
one of the things that we're
oh,
clearly trying to identify here is, there are different types of donors, there are different kinds of development officers, and the donors always have some sort of an interesting wrinkle to them. This one is a very friendly, warm, open individual, in terms of what they're giving has been and, his approach to actually having a meeting. Here we have, in some cases, we're always dealing with different types of objections and how to create that strategy around the objection. So we've got Lucy, and she's been a great major gift donor for 12 years. And previously, she's been giving 50,000 annually, but she's recently reduced her giving to 15,000 from 50,000. And but her interests are in naming opportunities, legacy, impact, so things like that that she could have that would sort of be tied in with our objectives. But she's been concerned that she hasn't been recognized, communicated with sufficiently, and she has kind of gone silent over the last couple of emails. So let's look at Lucy. And I'm sure that many of us have come into a situation where we've been new to the organization and there's been a Lucy. So let's see if we can start.
Would you like a quick 30-second setup or should we start immediately?
Let's do a 30-second setup.
All right, let's get your scenario clear. What organization and cause are you fundraising for?
I'm fundraising for my hospital. I'm just new at the hospital in the development office.
Got it. Is this a first meeting, a follow-up conversation, or are you making the ask today?
It's a first meeting, but there has been a great deal of follow-up with this individual over the last 12 years.
Understood. Did this donor approach you with interest, or are you reaching out to them first?
I'm reaching out to them because we've been trying to reach out with emails and have not been able to connect. As well, we uncovered a situation about recognition recently at our gala with this individual as well.
Who am I as the donor? Give me a name and a short background on that.
Your name is Lucy, and you are a very successful entrepreneur in the digital marketing space.
How would you describe Lucy? Warm, analytical, skeptical, legacy focused, or something else?
She's a combination. So she's a combination of legacy focused, skeptical, as well as very analytical.
What is Lucy's giving history with your organization? None, occasional, major donor, or exploring?
Exceptional, major donor. 12 years of major gift giving in the 25,000 and higher level. Previously, she gave 50,000 a year for 5 years for $250,000 contribution to our neonatal unit. And recently, when we were asking for another top up to her contribution, she decreased it to 15,000 from 50,000.
What gift range are we discussing with Lucy this time?
We're not talking a gift range. We just want to get our conversation back on track with Lucy.
No specific gift range right now, just reestablishing the relationship. Last piece, what's one outcome you want from this conversation?
I'd like to meet with Lucy, tell her how much we appreciate her support, and learn what it is that she is most interested in terms of what's taking place at the hospital, or what's taking place, or how her legacy can be developed and stewarded properly to her satisfaction.
Great, Lucy, a successful entrepreneur, first meeting after long term support about realigning her interests at your hospital, and your goal is to understand what she values most going forward. Let's begin. Hi, I'm Lucy. It's a pleasure to meet you. What would you like to share with me today?
Hi, Lucy. It's Bill from the hospital. Glad to meet you via this phone call. Would love to see if there's an opportunity for us to meet in the coming week. Want to just recognize you for your generosity to the hospital, as well as talk to you about what has been taking place with new programs and new priorities for the hospital, and love to get your feedback on it. We're first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that at our recent gala, uh, you felt that you were not recognized properly. And what I'd like to do is have a meeting with you to talk to you about that and understand what your motivation and what your plans are, and how they can be aligned with the hospital.
Let's pause there. First, you showed warmth and appreciation, great relationship building. Second, you named a specific issue, the gala recognition, which makes it real and personal. Third, you invited a future meeting, which is a concrete next step. For improvement, first, focus a bit more on asking me questions rather than front loading information. Second, when you mention hospital priorities, hint at one key area so I'm intrigued. Third, clarify the outcome you want from that meeting, feedback or re engagement. We're in the prospect identification phase. You reopen dialogue, so momentum is building. Would you like to run it again?
Could you help me with questions that would help open the conversation?
I don't have extra material to pull from here, but I can definitely guide you. Start with something simple like, Lucy, what's been on your mind lately when you think about the hospital? Or I'd love to hear what inspires you most about the impact you've made so far. Let them lead the reflection first.
How about, can you help me in terms of having that conversation with Lucy and her concern of lack of communication between herself, between the hospital and herself?
This is something we can address directly in our role play. Once you've acknowledged her concern, ask, Lucy, how would you prefer we keep you in the loop going forward? That opens the door for her to define the communication style that will rebuild trust.
Let's stop there.
Let's pause there. You brought up a real concern, communication gaps, which is important. You also expressed a desire to listen, which is key for trust. Finally, you aligned with her by offering to meet her needs. To improve, first be slightly more concise. Donors appreciate brevity. Second, after acknowledging the concern, ask a question to open her up. Third, follow with a gentle next step. Would you be open to reconnecting in person so we can rebuild that line of communication? We're still in prospect identification and you're making progress because you're addressing barriers. Would you like to try another run?
Let's stop there. Thank you. So you can see there's a situation of objections, and that could be one of her objections that she came up with, and how best that we could be practicing our conversation and re-engaging Lucy. James, have you encountered this in any one of your campaigns?
All the time, all the time. I mean, the scenarios are endless. I think you presented two really good ones, very, very typical. In fact, I can picture specific people that I've talked to in the past who are really at this kind of level. And I think one of the things the AI interaction brings out is how to become crisper in your conversational style and leaving things open-ended. She used the phrase front loading the communication. I think when we get nervous, we all tend to do that. So this, I think, helps to refine that so that you're able to pace the conversation more and allow her to intervene as appropriate.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I really liked about it, and this is something I've noticed in the AI space, is I think for all of you who noticed, there's a lot of questions asked in the start. You may wonder, why does Bill have to say so many different things to the AI? Is quite literally, right? An AI doesn't know who or what or anything about what it's talking to you. So by Bill explaining who Lucy was and Tim was, you're telling the AI how best it could pretend to be the person you want to practice. Now imagine the beauty of that when you have a meeting with the actual hospital tomorrow and the person you met at a cafe 2 days ago, and that person had a shared interest of actually going to the same elementary school as you, right? These little details, while they might seem like a lot of blabber when we're doing a live call, are actual things that might pop up in your real call. So the more you tell the AI, the better it's able to say, hey, you told me that, thank you. I'm going to make sure we practice that with you. So why I say this is something that popped up in my head as we learn about AI in the donor space, is how do you make sure when you're talking to the AI, you are not cutting corners and going, ugh, this is too long. Tell the AI exactly what you wish the AI knew. Because again, AI doesn't have sight yet. It doesn't have smell. It doesn't have hearing. It doesn't have remembering who Bill is in this call, right? So you have to make sure you tell every single thing possible, just like we did in these type of voice AI things. And I think that's going to be something all of you should take in kind of as a memory point.
Excellent. Excellent. So it brings us to the real value of AI and donor conversations. I think we've covered a lot of these bases off in our presentation. So this is our objective in as an outcome from today's webinar, is to really practice on the donor. Don't practice on the donor. Practice with a colleague, a coworker, practice in front of the mirror, or practice on the AI, looking at the effectiveness of having a 24/7 365-day coach with real-time feedback that is trained to your organization and your organization's priorities and needs. Build that level of confidence with around how to go from those objections, how to go from the difficult conversations, how to migrate your good annual donors into mid-level major gift transformational giving donors, how to handle sort of their conflicting priorities that they may have, or the other or individuals in their families or their corporations that the priorities that they may already have, and how does your campaign fit within that? And then provide the tools. Having the tools, the techniques, and the knowledge, and the ability to have those conversations is invaluable. And so one of the things that we want to continue to add on is the ability to be building your confidence, building your skill set. And James or Kensho, anything to add at this point?
I think I'll add a very quick final note is I think the beauty of being able to practice without that feeling of stress and nerves is something really, really important here. What James was mentioning last time was that, when you're talking to a real human, a part of you still feels a little bit bad of I'm wasting this person's time. So sometimes you have random questions in your head that you may want to ask, did I talk a little bit too long? But you're like, oh no, let's just use their time effectively. But with the AI, you could really go, hey, what did I do wrong? And keep telling me, tell me more, tell me more. And that goes back to point one I made, answer engine. You keep using the AI to get the answer or the purpose you were looking for. And you don't stop until you get that, because that is really, in terms of conversations, in terms of practice, how you will get the best of AI, right? If you get lazy and you go, that's the end of it, thanks. But you see what Bill did just now was tell me a few objection questions, right? He got what he wanted and he dig deeper. So I think all of you guys, there's a lot of value in this. Keep exploring the world of AI and be mindful but exploratory with it.
Thanks, Kensho. James?
I can't improve on what Kenshaw said. It's a game. It's a game changer, and I find it to be extremely exciting in terms of how this is going to help us move forward to become better fundraisers.
I want to open this up. We've got a few minutes before we wrap up, and I appreciate each and every one of your investment of time and interest in this area. I would love to answer any of the questions that you may have. If you want to do that now, or if you'd like to just connect with us, we'd be happy to follow up and respond to thoughts, concerns. I know one of the a couple areas that we would definitely will cover off in future sessions is skepticism of AI and how AI fits together. Secondly is policies and organizational policies, how AI is being used, how any particular AI will be a fit within your organization, and how that can come together. And then last but not least is to actually look at what our next session will be, and that's going to be artificial intelligence for major gifts and plan giving engagement. So different than having donor conversations, this is all around how AI is factoring into explain what your priorities are and how your priorities can fit and be aligned with your donors. So we look forward to having you and your colleagues at our next session. But I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank James, and I want to thank Ken Show, and I want to thank our team at Funding Matters for doing such a great job in pulling this together. And once again, all the best. Have a great day, and happy fundraising.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.